Welcome back. This is the second half of K24 this morning. We're talking about State of the Nation 2020, but right now we have a presser from the Lee Funeral Home. CS Interior Matiang'i is addressing the press. Let's listen in.
And I think when these things happen, we are now going to regroup and see what we can do and how we can organize the burial. Fortunately, Honorable Ben Momanyi, the Member of Parliament for Borabu, managed to be here, to get here, and the Solicitor General, Mr. Ken Ogeto. We are in touch with all the leaders of Nyamira and the key public servants from Nyamira. We are meeting later this morning to now reflect on this and work on a plan on what happens next. And immediately that happens, we will let all of you know. And the family will have a comprehensive plan later, because even Governor Nyagarama's sons are also going to have a meeting now to work on this as a family, and then they will let us know where we move to next. So a comprehensive statement and position will be issued later in the day after we have had consultations amongst the family members, the public leaders from Nyamira and everyone else. But it is very sad. Let me take this very sad opportunity to be the first one to send a message of condolences to the people of Nyamira, my fellow citizens from Nyamira County. This is our governor. He was such a decent man, and he was everyone is father and everyone is elder. A very nice man who, very calmly consulted everyone, never raised his voice, and fostered a very strong sense of unity in the county. Now, life is what it is. It's unfortunate. He has gone to sleep. Let's keep praying for the family, and let's keep together. And I ask the people of Nyamira, this is the time to give ourselves to the Lord and pray for this family, that the Lord may strengthen them and guide them through this very dark time. Thank you very much. I prefer that we do not do anything beyond there, please. Asanteni sana na tuheshimu hii familia ya mzee wetu Nyagarama. Mengine tutaongea wakati mwingine. Thank you so much indeed.
Those pictures and that statement live from the Lee Funeral Home as CS Interior Fred Matiang'i was addressing the press, passing his condolences, of course, on the passing of the governor of Nyamira, John Nyangarima. We'll be getting more details of this throughout the day, and we're bringing to you that particular live coverage right here on the show. Still in studio, we have Gabriel Muthuma, Vivian Ta. Join the conversation via Skype. We have Senator Kasanga as well, just wrapping up 2020 and the state of the nation at this particular point in time. And you can't talk about 2020 without talking about COVID-19 and how it's been handled or mishandled, depending on where you're standing and looking at this particular question. Let me start with the Senator very quickly, because you are even in an ad hoc committee just trying to make sense of how we got to where we are and some of the things that happened. And for very many Kenyans, they look at this and say, we have so many questions on this particular process happening now, but it seems like the entire country's conscience and focus is on the BBI process. We don't know what happened to the money. We don't know where it went. We don't know the directors of these companies. But let's talk about the referendum that's a couple of months away. Clearly lacking in priorities, or what's going on there from where you stand, Senator?
Yes, it looks like conversations around COVID seem to have taken a back seat. But I think actually they haven't. There's still a lot of conversations that are happening behind the scenes. It seems that the politics is what has taken the forefront. And our country politicians are very loud. So they have now taken the forefront, and all you're hearing about is the politics. But, the COVID wheels are still standing behind. And by the time our committee was wound up, investigations were still going on the cancer issues. I mean, the investigations are still going on. And I wish to encourage, again, media houses that, you keep abreast with that, because there are still conversations that were going on. And a lot of highlights and a lot of submissions made also began to shed light, when we're asking where are the COVID billionaires, although they have not yet been, called out or pointed at, you can still get a feel of the things that happen in these offices when tenders like these have happened. And I have to say, and it is important that I say, where the government started was from a good place. And I believe even at the time when our committee was very active in March and April, the steps that the national response team took were the right steps in the capacity that we had and from the learning that we had from, other jurisdictions and what they had gone through. So the initial lockdowns were able to contain the spread and the infection rate significantly, hopefully to give time for counties to prepare. Monies were sent down, and our frontline workers were given at least 3 months of some form of, relief earlier on. Now, the problem came when the economy had to be opened up, because now it became an issue of livelihood versus life itself. Because a lockdown is not sustainable in a country like ours. And even after all the tax relief that had been given, the truth just still remains that majority of the Kenyan worker is in the informal sector. And therefore, even the tax reliefs that were given at that point in time did not give the relief, back down to the mwananchi. So we couldn't stay in a lockdown. The process of opening up required that counties be prepared, because the next step, of course, was a question of when the counties now will begin to see the surge in COVID in the counties. Now, the tragedy is, of course, the fact that our healthcare system did not seem to improve significantly to handle the COVID situations in the county. Yes, there was some improvement. Yes, we saw at least you can say there are now ICU beds in many counties that were never there. But that is still not enough. We still would have wanted to see our healthcare workers protected and taken care of, being our frontliners. Would have wanted to see a lot more in the level 1, 2, and 3s, where the county governments are in charge of, and level 4s. And, we are still seeing that there's still a lot of gap when it comes to the infrastructure of the healthcare, as well as the economies of the counties. Again, the economies of the counties also suffered significantly. And we are looking towards, to see how counties are going to handle jump-starting economies at the county level. But all this is in a backdrop of, national government not releasing money to the counties. I think you have had governors complaining about this, and this will have a significant impact on how we are going to proceed forward when it comes to the fight against COVID, because the counties need this money, and we still haven't fully accounted for the money that was spent earlier on, the money that was sent down to the counties, as well as the supplementary budgets that were passed for significantly to fight with COVID. So we are yet to see some of those accounts, but more significantly, we are going to see a challenge, because money is not going to the counties as fast as it should be going, and in the prescribed way by the Constitution. So there we are going to have quite a bit of challenge. But what I can say is that Kenyans, we have to really take personal responsibility. Now we can point all the fingers to the county government, we can point the fingers to the national government, but in the end, it is about personal responsibility, keeping social distance, wearing our masks properly, and let's not forget to wash our hands. The culture of washing hands has taken root, but somehow Kenyans, either the fatigue of it, they seem to have slowed down on it, but I think we need to just continue with that culture, because COVID is here for some time. And even if the country can afford to buy some vaccines, as I think they are planning to do right now, I believe those vaccines will first go to our frontline workers. They will go to the vulnerable citizens in the society. And that leaves the larger portion of the society still exposed for a while, by the time we shall all be covered by these vaccines. And some of the cultures we learned, like washing hands, are good cultures, and we have to encourage them. But yes, we still have a long way to go. And a lot of cracks have happened. During this COVID period, we have seen a lot of gaps, and a lot has given in as well. As much as the silver linings can also be counted, the negatives seem to have been a lot more than the positives that we can borrow from COVID.
Studio on this, Vivian, we've listened to some of those who are brought before parliamentary committees to answer questions as to how they got these particular tenders, and it's even almost bordered on the comical. And someone says, I was walking in Kemsa, there was a crowd, I went and asked, and I walked out with an 180 million shilling tender. Really, lots of questions asked there. So even as this stands with where it is, are you confident that the people who did this particular crime will do the time and we get this monies back? Or are we still saying, let's move forward, BBI will solve corruption next year? Is that what we're doing?
First of all, I don't believe for a second that is actually what happened. I think someone engineered, for him to get the tender. And there was maybe a sort of agreement. I don't believe for a second that it was just random and some random stranger went and got, a 180 million tender. But when it comes to justice, I'm sure eventually the law will take its course, and I'm confident that eventually we will get the people who took part in this malpractice to pay for this. And hopefully the state will recover, some of the resources. Maybe not everything, but I foresee us recovering, some of the money and resources that have been lost. But then you brought up the subject of BBI. And Jeff, I just want to clarify. You see, BBI is not like a one-size-fits-all that solves each and every problem that this nation is going through. Granted, we have very many problems, and corruption is one of the key ones. And in the BBI, there are like 4 ways or measures that have been, put up across, proposed to resolve certain issues. So we have a constitutional, amendment bill to sort out the constitutional issues, but we have the legislative measures which will handle a lot of other issues that may not be included in the constitutional amendment bill. So corruption is one of the things that there are very many laws that have been amendments to, acts and laws that have been proposed to tackle issues such as corruption and just economic recovery, electoral, review. So I don't think people should look at BBI as this thing that just solves each and every problem that we have, but it's definitely looking into issues of like corruption through legislative and through administrative measures that will be put in place to make sure that some of these things are now streamlined.
Okay.
I believe the 2 principals, both the President Uhuru Kenyatta and the Right Honorable Raila Odinga, are very committed to seeing this through, because apart from just reviewing the 2 positions at the apex of the executive, the presidency and the deputy presidency, where we are restructuring, the report proposes to restructure the government so that there are added positions to allow for more communities to be included in the apex of the executive. Of course, this doesn't solve the issue of every ethnic community being included, but it somewhat tackles it, the issue of being excluded out of government, just because of the general perception of the public, which of course says that if our person is there, then our interest sort of is covered. It may not be necessarily true, but it's the perception of the people, and that's why it was necessary in the report to have a broader executive. But this does not mean that now BBI will cure every single problem that we have. And like the president said during his address at Jamhuri Day, this is a process. So this is just the beginning. We are just beginning. This is like the first amendment, and I am sure later on we will continue to review, depending on the environment we are operating in and the needs of the people. And we must remember that in Kenya, we operate in a we are a multi-ethnic nation, so we cannot say that the issue of winner takes it all is not tackled by the BBI report, because essentially I think the report even says the Prime Minister and the official leader of opposition cannot come from the same party. So it sort of, balances it off, because if you have a case like in Ghana where the presidential candidate, the person who won and the person who lost, the difference was very, very small. They got it was almost 50-50, if you can say that. In such a scenario, then, this other person who carries like a large chunk of the country can be the official leader of the opposition, and this other person can be the president. And it sort of includes everyone. And in this in this report, it means the Constitution now makes provision for the office of the official leader of opposition, which we do not have in the current Constitution, but we had in the previous Constitution, and it worked very well for us.
Gabriel, I'll come to you and move away from matters constitution, because even as Senator spoke about the fact, like in 2020, first it was the issue of lives, how do we save these lives, but slowly we realized even living is costly, and the livelihoods came into play. You're a business person as well. It's been a tough business environment globally.
It has been, yes. 2020. How do you see this spanning into 2021? Because already, even before COVID, we weren't on our best foot economically as a nation. No, and Jeff, we don't even need to go far. For people who have been doing business for the longest, they'll tell you this is the hardest they've ever seen. And you can choose to pick any business, but let me just pick a scenario, a business entity that I kind of know also very well. If you look at the hotel industry, the hospitality industry, and if you tie it with tourism, which was up until the other day one of the highest foreign income earners to this country, it has taken a beating. Some of the hotels, which we never thought would see close, have already shut down. The hotel, Norfolk Hotel, which has been there for almost a century, more than a century, has closed its doors. You're looking at a hotel like Fairview. You're looking at a hotel like the new one along Upper Hill, you know, Radisson Blue. This is just telling you that there is no, you know, I'm not focusing doom in any way, shape, or form, but they are telling you there's no end. You know, they can't see the other side of the spectrum. And when a businessman tells you that, it's a little bit shocking, because it tells you they do not know what to do. They do not know how. You know, if it's something that we knew, we were like, okay, this is a disaster that will go, you know, it's like a hurricane or whatever it is. This is something that will go out in about 2 or 3 months. Then you can be able to focus and be able to see where you're going to get more resources and be able to build your business back. That's not what we can see. There's no end in sight. So the much that I'm concerned about, it's because such an industry is also heavily and quite dependent on other industries. For instance, if tourists are not coming, that means our airports are going to take a beating. Our flights are going to take a beating. Our national carrier, as you can see, has already taken a beating. And like you said, it started a long time ago. We were, you know, complaining about Kenya Airways not making a profit back then. Now imagine what they are going through at this time of the pandemic. But that's not the problem, though. The problem is the workers who are waking up on a daily basis and going to eke a living out of these establishments. It's not even a case of feeling sorry for them. It's a case of where do we go from here? Because nobody has a silver bullet, really, at this time. So you are going to have people who are going to re-engineer their lives. Probably people who are used in hotel industry, the chefs, the waiters and the waitresses. All these people are going to start figuring out, how do I re-engineer my life? How do I re-engineer my career again? Woe unto you if you're past that age where it will be difficult for you to re-engineer life. But Jeff, these are the tragedies that such a pandemic like COVID has brought along with it. So I keep insisting that all of us globally started at the same line. So nobody can sit behind and say, you know what, I have an idea how this can. No, no, no. We are all struggling together. We are all trying to figure out all these things together. My only hope is, as we move to the to 2021, I am praying that it will be better than 2020, even though there are no signs. Because like Senator is telling us, we cannot afford to lose a step on the COVID protocols, the health protocols. The washing of hands, the continued sanitizing, the wearing of masks and what have you, and you know, and the social distancing. If, you know, moving into the festivities, because me and you know, many people are going to put their guard down. But this is something we cannot afford, because come January, you already know that our schools are going to be open. So that just tells you, it could be another tragedy waiting to happen. So we must constantly be reminded that we are dealing with a very serious and you know pandemic. We've just seen, we have lost a senator, again, like what our good senator said. We've lost a senator from Machakos. We have just lost our good governor, Nyamira. You know, and not only that, even our former politicians, we've lost, we are losing people. Okay. So it's no longer a case of a wait and see. It is a case of doing it. We must have our skin in the game. This is a serious time that we have accepted, and we must live out to the true spirit of being able to take care for one another. Otherwise, I think we are going to perish.
We have 5 minutes to go before we wind this up. Senator Kasanga, we speak about the gravity of what this COVID-19 has done, and we emphasize the protocols that need to be followed so as to make sure that we're all safe. But at the same time, we've gone through a whole year with medical workers asking for the basics. They don't have PPEs to work. They still don't have the allowances to work, and they still can't find a middle ground where these demands are met for them to do what is arguably one of the most dangerous jobs of 2020. We are going into 2021, possibly with the same problem, having doctors down their tools. How do we solve this particular issue? Because as a Kenyan, you'd think that this is like highest on the list of the government's agenda.
Yeah, and it's disheartening when it comes to the issue of doctors, because right from March, April, our first, of course, mandate was to deal with the healthcare workers, being our frontline workers, and the issues were highlighted even then, and it is shocking that we are still dealing with them now. But also, our learning as a committee, we found out that a lot of the doctors' issues were actually from before COVID. They were from pre-COVID. Issues that were never handled, issues that were swept under the carpet. So, of course, now at the time of COVID, when they are at the focus, any union would take advantage of such a situation to now try and push that all the other agendas, are taken care of. And I think the negotiations that are now going on are a question of saying, okay, can we put this one first on hold? This was a pre-COVID issue. Let's first handle the COVID issue, which is very tough, which is a very tough balance for the government. And yes, the government should have made our frontline workers the focus. And, the issue of fighting corruption and making sure PPEs have reached our doctors should have been on the forefront. Up to now, imagine, KEMSA is still holding on to so many thousands of PPEs. By now, we should have seen something happen around that. But even more importantly, the government did, I think the Ministry of Health, the CS of Health, he did give a green light to counties that they can procure their own PPEs, and KEBS went ahead and certified that, these companies can locally produce PPEs. So the question again now remains at the county level, why haven't the governors provided PPEs to the frontline workers? Why is that still a question up now today, which is so many months down the line? I mean, in the end, like I said earlier, the cracks were there and some have opened up. And that's what has happened with our healthcare system and our healthcare workers. It has opened up. So there are candid conversations that now must happen at county level and at national level when it comes to our healthcare infrastructure. A lot of corruption has happened there. And you know it because even Kagwe himself has stood in front of our cameras, in front of citizens, and said there are goons that are sitting in that building up there. He has said it himself. So again, the question still revolves around us as a society. What is it that we really want out of it? And I always say I'm a very optimistic person, Jeff, as we go into the next year, so that I can give my final comments. Be or not be, that is a question. And Kenyans are very optimistic, hardworking Kenyans. So we are going to choose to be. And for us to choose to be, we must rise up and say, this is not what we want. This is what we want. We are being called for our civic duty next year. BBI is coming. We have to vote while we know what it is we are voting for. Kenyans, you have to wake up. You have to read these documents that we are being asked to vote on, and let us vote wisely. There are some good changes that are being proposed in the BBI. Let us be alive to those facts, so that at least we can say we have moved our nation one step ahead. And then a call, of course, to government. Our Constitution 2010 has put all sorts of mechanisms to ensure service delivery to Kenyans in the most efficient manner. Can we see these institutions rise up and give back to Kenyans some justice? We want to see, prosecutions happening. We don't want to hear the judiciary saying DPP has not brought a foolproof case, so we can't prosecute. Can people do what they have been mandated to do? Because that's also where some of the lapses that we are seeing as we move forward to the new year. And I just want to say Merry Christmas to Kenyans and to yourselves there in the studio and to our panelists, and to wish us, a better year than the last, and that we take the learnings of this year, and celebrate them in the next year as we continue to re-engineer ourselves, because we've been forced to really re-engineer and think deeper about the way we do our things on a daily basis. So that is my wish for Kenyans for the next year. Thank you, Jeff. And thank you so much for having me.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Kasanga. Let me bring it to studio as we wind this up. Gabi, your parting shot for the year. We are done with 2020.
Like I told you, it's been quite an interesting year. And some people have made banters about this year. It started with January, February, COVID, and December. And so, it's many people, if you look at it, have really crossed that Rubicon of, you know what, I want to forget this year. But as much as we would want, we won't forget it. What we must do is that we must learn from it and continue doing our best to live out, again, to the true meaning of what visionary and more patriots and more people who love their country must do. And that is taking care of one another. Jeff, let me tell you what, we must live in a new creed of if you're in problems, so am I. So this is something we must make it a mantra even as we go through the Christmas holidays. We must be reminded that, you know what, if you get something and your friend or your neighbor doesn't get the same, it's always open. And Kenyans have been like that, like Senator is saying. We've always had that ingrained sharing spirit within us. But as we have moved, society has changed and what have you, we must go back to that tradition where we care for one another. Having said that, in finality, I think we also need to question ourselves when it comes to voting new leaders. We are coming now to serious by-elections, like the one we are talking about of Nairobi. We must be reminded of the true vicious people who want to protect liberties. And not only that, people who want to be in line with the Constitution. And we must, if we must live to that realization, we must take seriously Chapter 6. And I repeat, if we really want to be patriots, people who care for government, for Constitution and devolution, we must be alive to the facts and the pronouncements of Chapter 6 in our Constitution.
That's where we leave it. Vivian Ta, your 30 seconds, your parting shot for 2020.
I just want to wish everyone happy holidays, and as people go to be with their families for the holidays, please keep safe, you know, wear your mask, follow the COVID protocols, just so that we can, you know, flatten this curve. But also, of course, I cannot close the show without, you know, I want to address the detractors and opponents of ODM. It's true we lost Msambweni, and in many of the other by-elections, but it does not mean that it was a popularity contest, you know, nationwide popularity contest for the party, and it doesn't mean we are down or out. We are going to re-strategize, and we are going to, you know, come back stronger. Watch us next year. Kuna BBI inakuja, kuna by-elections inakuja hapo mbele. We will show you. And remember, the dynamics of a by-election are very different from the dynamics of a general election. So don't judge us just by Msambweni.
We leave it at that, but I think your party leader did say that the winner was his candidate. So I don't know. That's what the former PM said, and that's where we leave it. Thank you so much for making time this morning. Gabriel Muthuma, asante sana for your time. Vivian Ta, asante sana for your time as well. Join the conversation via Skype. Thank you so much. Senator Kasanga, thank you so much for your time as well. Asante sana. That's where we drop the curtains as far as this show is concerned for the year, by the way. We're also wishing you a very Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. Please stay safe wherever you are as well. We're going to take a short break right now on the show. When you come back, there'll be Christmas hats in here. There's going to be DJ and cake because that's how we do the holiday. We'll be right back after that break. Don't go too far.